Bob and I had this conversation a couple months ago. And, the funny thing is that I don't know if you've noticed, I've started losing weight. I'm down pretty significantly from when we did this. And it was all with the intent of starting my Big Men in Heels OnlyFans page. I just wanted to look really good. Seems like a good way to make money. But unfortunately, OnlyFans is clamping down. And actually, there's a bit of sadness there. And the irony here is that Bob and I spent probably way too much time in the beginning talking about OnlyFans. But then we got into his first experiences with FPV. And it was pretty interesting because he and Tommy did start in a similar place. And that has been very interesting to hear about. If you like what I do, hit the like button, go ahead and subscribe. That does help out the channel. If you really like what I do, I have a Patreon. These Patreon folks get the unedited version of this in both podcast and video form. So if you like it, go ahead and check that out. Anyways, let's get into it. Talk to you soon. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Michael Rollins Show. And here we have a man who could very well be the contender for most beautiful man in FPV. Bob ROOGI.
No, I think that's Freybot.
Freybot? Yeah, or is it so all right, my current contenders are you, Drew, Jake, and I have to go Jake oh god, now I forget his name. Jake, a Cat and Jake. Quad chat with Jake and Cat. I'll remember his name in like 20 minutes. Sorry, Jake. I love you, brother. I said his last name so many damn times. We might have to cut this. And then I'll have to go. I think I vaguely remember seeing Freybot, so maybe we'll have to add him to the pantheon of.
Well, he's a male model, so I'd assume that he takes the cake.
Ooh, there's another guy, Nico FPV, maybe. That dude,
it's this
freaking. It makes me sick, man. Like I remember like his flying, he's the guy that flies with like the super high powered drones on like 6S. They're like insane eight rotor setups to like track planes while they're flying. Right. But then I saw like an actual picture of him in like an Instagram story or something. I was like, bro, why the hell aren't you modeling? Like you can make more money there. Right.
So it's a hint at OnlyFans pages. Oh my God. One of my friends has an apartment structure and he just got an application. This is LA. Just got an application from somebody that is an OnlyFans girl. And he has a very high-end apartment structure. And there's like, it's not even 1,500 square feet that he rents for $7,900 a month. $7,900 a month. And on this application, we learned that this girl has an income of $25,000 to $30,000 a month from OnlyFans, and she has a credit score of 750.
Jeez,
I mean, it's incredible.
So what's crazy? When I worked, so back in the 90s, okay, this was 96. I worked for an ISP, and we like people joke about it, but it's very true. Porn built the internet. It built
everything. Built photography.
It built VHS and Betamax and photography, and the crazy thing is that
and now cats built the rest.
Cats built the rest. But here's the wild thing: you would think that porn would become giant in VR, but it is not. It's not. It's there, but it's not the driving force now. And like, it's really wild to think that, like you tell me that an OnlyFans girl is getting, $30,000-$40,000 a month in income. Yeah, I believe it. I've seen people's cash files.
She only has like 200,000 subscribers or people on Instagram.
She doesn't have a big following. Don't pay the bills.
No, I know, but she doesn't even have like a huge following.
Yeah. Well,
it's impressive.
I'll tell you what, if all it takes is 15,000 $1 a month subscribers.
Yeah.
$2 a month subscribers, right? Like That's it. And it was funny. I actually read an article about this guy in Nashville he was a struggling artist. Um, he used to like bartend and bounce and wait tables, and it was like that's what he did as his job. And he tried to write music and he couldn't. And then one day, right after the pandemic started, one of his friends said, "You need to start an OnlyFans page." And the guy's not homosexual, but he doesn't care. So he did. And within a month, he made $100,000. He doesn't take his clothes off. He's just a jacked, ripped guy. And he said, you know, I take my shirt off he said, but what I do is, you know, I take tasteful pictures, and none of them are naked, and I let the people look at them, and then occasionally we all just chat. He said, I've got housewives in there. He said he's got a very large male following, and he's like, and now I can write all the music I want. He's like, I work 10 hours a month, and I'm making more money than I ever thought I could ever make. I was like, geez, man, that's just bonkers. So I'm going to start my OnlyFans soon. It's big men in high heels. That's what it's going to be. Big men in high heels. I don't know who's going to wear the high heels, but I'm the big man.
My girlfriend's hairstylist quit her job and now runs her own OnlyFans page, but also recruits girls for OnlyFans or a similar page where she gets a commission on all of their work. So she's literally the modern day pimp. Like literally today's pimp.
It's like a poor pyramid scheme.
And the most crazy thing is that since she's a hairstylist, she does
gets to see all the pretty girls.
Right. She sees all those moms at home that are doing nothing and still look great. And she's like, hey, you want to make $20K a month? Just chatting with guys? Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yep. So
it's a scam.
Yeah, man. Amazing stuff. I'm not pretty enough to do OnlyFans, unfortunately. So. But we are not here to talk about your OnlyFans page, Bob. It's going to be a link in the description below. It's nothing but teeth. I'm just going to tell you right now. Did you ever get banned from Instagram for the stuff you were posting?
Oh my God. The accounts that I follow are like 1,000,000 times worse than the stuff that I post.
I know. I knew something was up when I started seeing your stories. It just said, this contains sensitive content. And I'd flick to the next one. This contains sensitive content. I'd flick to the, I'd be like, well, Bob's apparently a sensitive man.
It's too much work to keep up with this stuff. So I just give up. Like I can't keep going.
So when did you get into FPV? What year was it?
2011.
2011. Okay. And so give me like a sense of what was happening in 2011. What were people flying? Was like a video transmission a thing back then?
Well, the first time I actually flew or at least built up the guts to fly FPV was 2014.
2014. Okay.
Yeah, 2.4, not 2.4, 1.3 was a thing.
Oh, wow.
It was like a normal thing. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't much of a thing, but 1.3 was like an option, a real option. Mm-hmm. And it was Dragon Link. Dragon Link was our crossfire.
I have heard of that.
And it was like giving your Tyrannus or whatever controller you were using like cancer, because after it puts out so much power that after a while it just scrambles all the code and the controller just breaks. So that was fun. And yeah, I was building tricopters.
That is the thing, and that's wild. So I've also talked to Tommy, and he started at FPV in the same place.
Yeah, it's the worst idea ever. Worst idea ever.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about
tricopters. This tail rotor mechanism was such a disaster of an idea. I don't even understand why anybody considered it over a quad. I only considered it because I'm like, oh yeah, I want my video to look natural and swoopy. Let alone I couldn't even fly the damn thing, couldn't even hover. But now I understand. I mean, back then, converting to today, I know that people go out here looking for stuff to buy, and they're like, oh my god, I want to go the fastest. Oh, I want to fly the longest. I want to do all this crazy stuff. But in reality, if you just figure out how to hover the thing, you're already ahead. Like you're already doing good.
Well, you know, it's funny because you know, my sons, I've periodically, they're like, well, I'm just not that good, and they're actually both pretty good. And I just look at them, I'm like, you are better at flying drones than 99% of the world. There's probably like 3 nines attached to it, by the way. And they're just like, what do you mean? I'm like, go. What if we walked up to some dude on the street, grabbed him, slapped goggles on him, put a controller in his hand, told him how to arm? How's that gonna go? And they were like, oh, that'd be awful. You know, it's like, okay, you're better than most everybody else. So what? How did? So all right. So for our viewers that have never seen this, how do you fly a tricopter? Like, what is the
Same
actual?
way.
No, not. But like the mechanics of the tail rotor and things like that.
So first of all, you have 3 blades. So only one of them is counter rotating. That alone should
That's a
send
problem.
up.
That's a problem.
Exactly, that's a problem. Like right out there, you've got the torque of one motor to counteract. So the thing never actually hovers flat. The rear rotor is always tilted a little bit because it has to counter the torque of the one motor. So that right there is just a disaster, just stupid. And the reason why I think they became popular was because back in the day we were like, we need 14-inch blades. No, 17-inch blades. And like, like the bigger the better. That's what we need. And we only started going down in size in like 2015, 2014, 2015. That's when it actually reached to 5 inch or so ish. And yeah, so the tail rotor just twists and it pulls the tail side to side to yaw the thing around. So it does actually, well, back then the flight controllers were so crappy at managing everything, so they didn't have a good handle on the attitude. So when it would pull the tail side to side, you would get like a swoop motion of the camera. Today, they're way better at this, and they will maintain their attitude. And so they'll yaw flat because they'll just drop the power of the front to balance everything. And so they're very well today. They're not as good as we used to see them as, because you can't balance the weight properly. The thing doesn't have as much like grip on the air because of all this weird mechanism. And the tail rotor mechanism is still a disaster. I mean, some people love tricopters, and that's fine. Back then, we were using like I was using hinges from doors, like door hinges, because I got fed up with like these plastic things with the straw, some crap. Like it doesn't work. So
I mean, it's just for the folks that have never seen it. There's a servo on the back of the tail. Like there's actually like when you know, you think of a quadcopter now, like to move in space, you like spin up one motor, spin down another, whatever. No, for this one, there is actually a servo that more slowly moves the tail back and forth, which is just yeah.
So it's a disaster. The Y6 is actually a good idea. I actually think the Y6 is a great option.
Well, there's more. Everything's counter rotated then, right?
Yeah, right. It's basically a quad, but a tri-quad. So it's good because it's less complex than an X8, and it's has the redundancy. So it's actually really good option. A really good option, but not for like cinema cameras, for like GoPros and things, and like things where you just need more lifting power. It's a really good option.
And now talk to me about the props, because you said the props were giant. Like what was do you remember what the thinking behind that was?
Yeah, what does Hobby King sell? Giant props. Which prop doesn't explode? Which prop has a 4-star rating and doesn't cost $20 a blade? That was the one. And so it was the slow fly props. All the slow fly props were like the crazy like popular ones. The purples and the greens and the reds and the oranges and the yellows, like those are the thing. Yeah, it was a awful time.
So what was it? What were things like before, like you actually strapped the goggles on, and was it even goggles?
So I actually started with the teleporter goggles,
Hmm.
which I promptly returned because it was a it was a scam because it's like 100 by 50 resolution and it's like smaller than a postage stamp. Like you can't see anything. So
Hmm.
I'm like, is this broken? I
Yeah.
couldn't even tell if it was functioning properly. So I returned that and then I got a screen, like an actual screen, and
Hmm.
I put it in a box because there were no box goggles.
Hmm.
And you basically fly by like looking down into this box. And we had no simulator, we had nothing. So
Hmm.
the biggest challenge was to remove your mind and put it in the drone. Like you had to just remove the line of sight of the quad. So you just had to forget that
Hmm.
you had the ability to see the quad, and that was the hardest thing in the world because you'd spend all this time figuring out how to hover, figuring out how to do flips and rolls, basic stuff, and like the first flip that you do, you're like terrified.
Yeah.
You're like 400 feet in the air, you can barely see the damn thing. You're like, okay, I'm gonna try it now, and then you can't see what's happening, and it's just tumbling down, and you're like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have been so high. Like it's the stupidest thing, and you're on what's it called, the angle mode or whatever it was, where it
Hmm.
has like
Hmm.
sort of had just come out, the
Yeah.
mode where it was auto level but it
Hmm.
can do rolls, like
Yeah.
just barely fresh, the latest version.
Hmm.
And yeah, that was the first flip, and then you get better, and then you have to put your eyes in this box, and you can't see the damn thing, and you have no
Hmm.
spatial awareness because we were flying with cameras that had like 2.6 millimeter lenses. We didn't have like 1.8, 2. Well, we didn't have these wide angle lenses,
Right.
so you're stuck in this view where it's zoomed in and you cannot see anything around you, and you're trying to just like hover because you still haven't gotten the grasp of constant motion.
Hmm.
Now we understand that like anybody
Yeah.
will fly
Moving is
simulator.
easier.
Yeah, they'll quickly realize that okay, everything is in constant motion, so you always have to constantly manage it, and it becomes that second nature. But back then, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna hover. I'm
Hmm.
just gonna hover. If I crash, it's fine. It's just the hover, and you can't because you're like drifting backwards and
Hmm.
sideways, and you have to be in constant motion. And once you start moving in constant motion, shit's moving so fast that you're like, oh my god, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You don't have a good handle on the controls. It hasn't become second nature. You don't have any aids, nothing. The thing flies like garbage because the code can't even begin to keep up with what's happening, and it's just this hodgepodge mess. But it was so awesome. You just couldn't stop. You had to keep doing it, and that was how it was. Just a disaster, disaster, total disaster.
So how long did it take you to not think about the sticks?
I, I mean, I don't, a year
Okay. So it
maybe.
wasn't like, because I remember when I learned how to fly, it took me like a year or two. And I just remember going out one day and I just flew and I was like, oh, I didn't think about how to move the
Right,
sticks. I just moved
right.
them.
So those moments
Hmm.
happen quickly, and that's what keeps you going. Like
Yeah.
you can perceive your own progression,
Hmm.
so it's like really good,
Hmm.
and that's why you want to come back to it. And it's like they're the what is that documentary Flow State? It's
Yeah.
not out
Flow
yet.
state. I haven't seen it,
Yeah,
but yeah.
but there's a lot. It's not. I don't know where it is, but there's a lot of. It's interesting that they chose that name because there's a lot of research about flow,
Hmm.
like just flow in general. Like it's
Hmm.
this random, ambiguous thing,
Right.
but in reality, it's defined as your skill matching the task,
Hmm.
like a match one for one task, and that's what we all want at our jobs, at everything. Like we
Hmm.
want to be challenged enough, just enough to be interesting. We don't want to be over challenged.
Hmm.
And that's the key, to stay within that small window. And so you get this kind of flow state feeling, and it feels like a drug because you're just like, oh my God, that was amazing. I made this
Hmm.
turn and then I crashed, but I made a turn. It was
Hmm.
incredible.
Yeah.
And so you keep going at it, and it just becomes this addictive feeling. In some sense, it's not quite as fun now because you don't have that. You play a simulator, you get the hang of it, and you go out and fly. There's no more progression. There's no more. Of course, there's still like getting better at it, but it's it's kind of like driving a car. It's like you might play a racing game, and then you're like, okay, well, I understand. I turn the wheel left, it goes left, right, it goes right. Okay, there's no challenge here.
You know, it's always interesting to hear Bob's take on things because he normally has a very different take than a lot of other people. He also is perhaps one of the most meticulous folks I've ever met. And I'm sure that can be frustrating for folks who work with him or maybe live with him. At the same time, it means that the things he makes and the things he produces are very well thought out and are also very good. Which makes the next portion of our interview very interesting because Bob and I talk a lot about China and cloning and how all of that has affected the FPV industry. Check it out next week. If you do like what I do, hit like, subscribe, go ahead and comment. That does help the channel. And if you really like what I do, check out my Patreon. Links in the description below. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.